Remember back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton warned that Donald Trump would start a war with the way that he posted on Twitter? She wasn't exactly right, but she was close because Donald Trump has gotten in the way of wars being ended with his insane posts, as we just saw a complete meltdown on Truth Social ahead of his meeting with President Zelensky and numerous European leaders tomorrow, in which he is blowing up a potential peace deal by attacking Zelensky and losing his mind. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into the insane Trump post about Zelensky, I want to start with the post he made right before attacking Senator Chris Murphy. And before that, we need a bit of context with Murphy's call out of Trump.
Initially said he wanted a ceasefire agreement. Now he wants a broader peace deal. Secretary Rubio defending that approach, basically saying the Russians wouldn't agree to a ceasefire. Do you think that it's the right strategy to now focus on that broader peace deal?
That meeting was a disaster. It was an embarrassment for the United States. It was a failure. Putin got everything he wanted. I mean, first of all, he wanted that photo op, right? He wanted to be absolved of his war crimes in front of the world. He was invited to the United States. War criminals are not normally invited to the United States of America. He is intentionally murdering civilians. He's kidnapping children. And now he got to stand next to the president of the United States, legitimized in the view of the world. Second, he didn't have to give up anything, nothing. Right? President Trump said he wanted a ceasefire. It appears the ceasefire wasn't even seriously discussed. And then third, there's no consequences. Trump said, if I don't get a ceasefire, Putin's going to pay a price. And then he walked out of that meeting saying, I didn't get a ceasefire. I didn't get a peace deal. And I'm not even considering sanctions. You heard Secretary Rubio downplay sanctions. And so Putin walks away with his photo op with zero commitments made and zero consequences. What a great day for Russia.
So as you can imagine, Senator Murphy landing that brutal blow, perfectly diagnosing what happened with Trump and Putin, that this was simply a photo op for Putin to legitimize his war crimes, while Donald Trump got to pretend that he was a strong, tough guy, even though he looked weak and pathetic, which is exactly what he is. Yes, that would upset Donald Trump. So he took those tiny little thumbs to Truth Social, starting out his midnight meltdown saying this about Chris Murphy. Trump wrote, the very unattractive, both inside and out, senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy, said Putin got everything that he wanted. Actually, nobody got anything. Too soon, but getting close. Murphy is a lightweight who thinks it made the Russian president look good in coming to America. Actually, it was very hard for Putin to do so. This war can be ended now, but stupid people like Chris Murphy, John Bolton, and others make it much harder to do so. Yeah, so how is it difficult for Putin? Because you haven't explained that part yet. And it's funny that Trump mentions John Bolton because that's who was most vocal in pointing out the fact that Trump was quite tired and feeble and falling apart at his summit with Putin, which might be part of the reason that the cavalry is coming to town. Actual adults are showing up in Washington tomorrow. An announcement made by numerous European leaders that has led to the Trump posting meltdown. I want to start with the news before we see Trump freak out. European leaders to join Ukraine's Zelensky for meeting with Trump. European and NATO leaders announced Sunday they will join President Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington to present a united front in talks with Donald Trump on ending Russia's war in Ukraine and firming up U.S. security guarantees now on the negotiating table. Leaders from Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and Finland are rallying around the Ukrainian president after his exclusion from Trump's summit on Friday with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Their pledge to be at Zelensky's side at the White House on Monday is an apparent effort to ensure the meeting goes better than the last one in February when Trump berated Zelensky in a heated Oval Office encounter. The European leaders are very afraid of the Oval Office scene being repeated, and so they want to support Mr. Zelensky to the hilt, said retired French general, a former head of France's military mission at the United Nations. So European leaders are coming to town to make sure Donald Trump does not screw this thing up, which is seeming like what he is inclined to do, and that would be no surprise to anyone. But he's not waiting until tomorrow to do so. His attacks on Zelensky have already begun. He is making wild announcements, blowing up this deal. It's exactly what you'd expect, and we can see it right here. In a string of posts, Trump wrote, President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. Remember how it started. No getting back Obama-given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired, and no going into NATO by Ukraine. Some things never change. Trump wrote, the fake news says that it is a big loss for President Trump to host so many great European leaders at our beautiful White House. Actually, it is a great honor for America. Trump capped it off by writing, did the great American flags I put up in front of both entrances of the White House look fantastic or what? Wow, what a difference. President DJT. Donald Trump is immediately ceding ground. This is a guy who always likes to say, when it comes to his idiotic and damaging tariffs, that he has all the cards. All you need to know about how much Donald Trump doesn't care about our ally in Ukraine is just looking at the difference between the way that he and his allies posture themselves when talking about tariffs versus talking about Putin. When it's tariffs, they say they're squeezing leaders. We've been treated unfairly. We're going to get concessions. They're not going to like it, but it's what America needs. When it's Putin, they act powerless. They pretend to be powerless. Well, we can't do anything about Crimea. There's going to be no Ukraine joining NATO. Donald Trump is giving up any leverage he could possibly have in this negotiation in a Truth Social post. That's what he's doing. That's how stupid he is. Or maybe it's not stupidity. It's the fact that a deal likely has already been cut. One that makes Putin smile like he did at that summit, and so bad that Donald Trump is terrified to talk about it. No wonder Carolyn Leavitt and all those Trump aides came out of the meeting with terrified looks on their faces. They know how weak Donald Trump is, and it's why he's trying to play tough with his takeover of D.C. But it's not working, and Jamie Raskin called it out right here.
Well, there's plainly no emergency. America saw a real emergency in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. That's what a real emergency looks like, an insurrectionary riot against the Capitol of the United States where 140 police officers were wounded. There's nothing like that in D.C. That's why Donald Trump keeps talking about the graffiti, or he talks about the blight of homelessness. What are all those National Guard officers doing other than participating in a completely manufactured crisis? The real public relations emergency was, of course, the Epstein file, and Donald Trump moving to try to change the subject as quickly as possible. So let's hope this doesn't escalate into real problems because of the provocation organized by Donald Trump. In any event, even if there were a real emergency, Donald Trump doesn't have the power to take over the Metropolitan Police Department. He has the power under the Home Rule Act only of directing the mayor of D.C. to give police services in order to provide particular federal protection in the event of something like a riot or, an attack on a foreign dignitary. He could request some kind of police escort. But basically, these people don't really know what they're doing there, and they don't have any specific function. And as the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department put it, that's a very dangerous thing to be introducing that kind of confusion and chaos into the line of command.
Congressman, what do you make of these Republican governors sending additional troops into D.C. to be part of the Trump administration's takeover there? I mean, this means for the people who are deployed to do this, leaving their state, leaving their families, their day-to-day lives for this purpose. Are members of our military, to your knowledge, are they disturbed by any of this, uncomfortable with their service being used in this way on our soil?
Well, certainly the members of the D.C. National Guard, who are directly under the control of the president, despite Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton legislation to try to remove it from the president and give it to D.C. But those people are put in an uncomfortable position, but at least there's a kind of friendliness about them. When it started, people were taking pictures with them. They were just hanging out at the Washington Monument. They're not interested in provoking any kind of confrontation. But the National Guardsmen coming in from West Virginia and South Carolina and Ohio, who knows what their orders are, and who knows what their attitude is coming into the nation's capital. So, this is a moment to de-escalate as quickly as possible. I think that the Trump administration recognized that they didn't have the power, nor did they have the expertise to actually run the D.C. Police Department. And it's not quite clear what all of them are doing. But for people in the resistance and in the opposition, it's a very clear boost for teaching America about the need for D.C. statehood. People in Washington for decades now have been demanding the right to be admitted into the Union. It's passed out of the House of Representatives twice when the Democrats were in control. And just like 37 other states that entered the Union from the original 13, this is a case that absolutely warrants admission to the Union. And so Congress must act. It's a simple majority vote in the House, majority vote in the Senate, and to be signed by the president. But that's very much got to be on the agenda of moving democracy forwards instead of moving democracy backwards to some kind of military rule.
Congressman, you've talked about the influx of troops from other different locales, many of whom we are hearing reports will likely be armed, and you've sort of leaned into the notion of needing to de-escalate before things sort of take a bad turn. With your district being as close to D.C. as it is, what are you hearing from your constituents? Is there any concern there about potential takeover of cities like Baltimore? I know it's been floated, but is there any concern that this may spill out from just beyond D.C. and into other locales? What are you hearing from the people you represent?
Well, the president keeps mentioning Baltimore and Oakland and I believe Chicago and Detroit as the next potential targets in this row of dominoes that are supposed to fall with Trump militarization for no apparent overriding purpose. Remember, crime is down in the District of Columbia to a 30-year low. It's down 25 or 30% just in the last 2 or 3 years. And there are similar drops in crime in Baltimore and other big cities.
Donald Trump is the weakest, most pathetic man in America, and he seems to know it maybe more than anyone else does. But I'm going to be making sure that anyone who doesn't does by talking about it every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.